Hey guys, my name is Sean, and welcome to our podcast at Build Muscle and Burn Fat. Today we have a special episode, and we have Phill, who represented Australia in the Commonwealth Games in Olympic weightlifting. He's currently a coach, but I'm currently going to leave it there so that we can introduce Phill, and he can tell us a little bit about himself with an elevator pitch.
Okay, so there's no elevator pitch. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Sean. If I had to say anything about myself, I would say that currently I'm an online coach. I'm also living a digital nomad lifestyle, which amounts to not much of a lifestyle, and a bit of a digital entrepreneur. So I sell online courses to do with helping coaches upskill in specific disciplines of movement.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing because we were just talking about this off air, how you have a bit of a background in more than just personal training. Is that right?
Yes. So I actually was a physiotherapist for about 18 months before I became a full-time coach.
18 months is pretty standard from what I hear from physios. They usually last 2 years.
Mhm.
Where did you find physiotherapy kind of led you, and why only 18 months, if you don't mind me asking as well?
Not at all. Physio led me to understanding that I didn't want to be a physio. Like that's just being raw. And I think the time point is 2 years because most people think, they calculate their time scale based off years. And I just calculated my time scale based off months, right? So I decided that 6 months more is 6 months too much. What I learned in that journey of being a physio is that the impact that I wanted to make as a physio was best achieved not as a physio. And this came from all facets of rehab, right? As an ex-phys yourself, you kind of know that people who become clinically ill to go see you usually have been that way for decades, or maybe at least 1 or 2 years. And if you want to stop them from getting to that stage, you actually need to get them prior to that, which is roughly, say, when they're classified as Gen Pop population. But you could be overweight for years before you have any problem. Anyway, why that's important to me is because in a physio clinic, the existence of a clinic is already reactive, right? You have a clinic, people go to the clinic when they're sore, when they're injured, it's very reactive. And we tell people about coming to the clinic to be proactive and do things that prevent your injury, blah, 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 blah. But realistically, 90% of your consults are reactive. So physio is always associated with reaction. Oh, hurt myself, go see a physio. But if you go and work as a coach or a PT, you get people, I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work with people who want to be healthy. And within that scope of practice, I can do everything that I want as a physio, exercise-wise, and I don't need to touch you.
Yeah.
No one expects me to touch you. Whereas in physio, people still expect, and I can charge more.
Yeah.
Physios pay like what, $90, $100 for an initial consult, but you're not really paying that much because you have private healthcare. So realistically, you value physio at $40 to $50 per consult. But then the moment your private healthcare runs out, it's like, see you next year. So value wise, it's like I actually value my personal trainer slash coach more, and I see him every week. And there's more benefit to this role than a physio at this stage. So I just thought it's better to be a coach who's a physio than a physio who's a coach.
I actually love that one because that's what I found myself kind of stuck with being an ex-phys too. And I guess you could probably relate with this story too. Like when you'll meet someone who's, 10 years smoking, drinking, doctor finally says, hey, look, now you need to make a change. And then you're dealing with so much more when the person wasn't even ready for that change. Whereas when you get someone in a gym, typically they go, well, something's bad happened. I want to change internally. And I think we're going to be probably talking about this later on. But that mindset shift, that's the hardest thing. You can't force someone to change their mindset. They almost have to come in with that by themselves, or they have to have some sort of click moment that happens. And usually that tends to happen around bad times. And I'm going to ask you this question actually.
Mm,
When people signed on with you as a personal trainer, did you find that they
mhm.
had something traumatic or something great happen before?
Yeah, mostly, I would say mostly leaning towards traumatic.
Yeah.
Very rarely would I, it's more rare that I get someone who just woke up one day and said, nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
I just want to train. Like very rare, very, very rare. It has happened. Sometimes it happens even in the inverse where something amazing has happened and they
Yeah.
want to train now. So like an engagement. I have a
Mm.
wedding coming up. I want to be in the best shape of my life. Happy times. But most people, it's I looked in the mirror one day, realized I didn't like myself or had a heart attack or hurt my knee, watched my grandmother die. All these things that are very negative
Breakups,
and it
engagement,
spurs.
all that
Oh,
kind of
breakups
stuff.
is a big one. Breakups is a really big one.
Breakups and
Yeah.
divorces, those ones are the big ones that I see.
I actually haven't gone through the divorcees that much. I've got
Yeah.
more of the breakups. But yeah, those are definitely big ones.
Mm. I 100% have gotten more of those over my time. So as a coach, funny enough, it was never about programming. It was about how can I console this person, make them see their self-worth and help them feel better. And those have always been the better transformations that I loved and enjoyed training as well.
It's always intertwined, right?
Mm.
As a coach, I don't think that you're prepared well enough that if you don't know a person's mind and how to communicate with them properly, the physical changes are much harder to come by.
Oh, I'm still struggling to know how to communicate with people. Um, Funny enough, like I said offline as well, I've been spending more times in the last 12 to 18 months working on my communication skills more than any program, nutrition, anything along those lines, because I didn't realize how important it was. Now, you are really well spoken and you have great tonality, which I've picked up from many podcasts I've heard you do. Where did you
Oh,
learn
thanks,
this?
bro. I think I have a couple of friends who are very well spoken,
Mm,
for one. And it's just, I have a natural gift, I would say, an ability to organize thoughts in my head and articulate that, right? I don't believe that I actually spent time learning about this. It's just some people are good at music, some people are good at mathematics. I seem to be good at chaining thoughts in my head, making it coherent and talking about it in a very fast manner. That's the only thing I can think of. And apart from that, I just like telling a story. I would say that. I enjoy just having a conversation, telling a story. And on a podcast format, I feel as if I have permission to do that, right?
mm,
Whereas if I'm conversing with you in person and we're not in this format, I would be less likely to inclined to just blab about my stories because as a coach, you would know that usually we default to the other person. We are good at asking questions, we are good at listening, but we may run into this trap where we take this skill into personal relationships and it doesn't become a 50-50 sharing anymore. It becomes like, Phil's a great listener or Sean's a great listener. Like, oh, I love talking to Sean. Sean's the best. I always feel better after talking to Sean. I always feel better after talking to Phill. And we're like, yeah, good for you, bro. I'm fucking exhausted.
uh, I tell this to my wife all the time. Like, I love people, but they drain the hell out of me. And I mean it nicely. And like, people who are listening to this who may know me personally, I mean it really, really sorry. But like sometimes I just need to be locked in my room and just be like, I need to recharge my batteries because every single day it's like I'm listening, actively helping. And it's like, does someone want to listen to me too? Because that'd be great. Or I just want to not talk. And my wife knows those cues. She goes, you just want to watch TV? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But do you ever
That's
find
so
yourself
cool,
like
man.
absolutely drained?
All the time, man. All the time. When it comes to personal relationships, I find that I'm very lucky in the sense that my friends are inquisitive about me. So they like to ask me questions and we have a very good back and forth, right, in our conversation style. But when it comes to meeting new people or coaching, yeah, I get drained all the time. But that's kind of the mask you have to put on, and then afterwards I'll just disappear for like 48 hours.
Mm. You don't have
Like
X amount of new people per week.
yeah, no, I don't have many new people at all. I spend enough time talking to the ones that I do have
Mm.
that I don't really want to pick up new people unless mentally I feel like I'm ready for someone different. But like somebody like who's been in the coaching industry for a while, you kind of meet the same personality types over a period of time. You kind
Mm.
of I've heard this phrase before. You can even guess what they've been watching. You guess what movies they like. You kind of know this person, even though it's a different person. And then you just kind of like, oh yeah, okay. I can kind of pick exactly who you are in a very short period of time, right? It's almost like you're a mind reader, but you're not. You just
Yeah.
have a pattern recognition system.
Yeah. You just happen to have so much information that you go, you're in between these two people that I trained X amount of years ago at that part of their life.
Yes. Yes. And it's kind of sometimes it's kind of bad because you're constantly profiling people as you're listening to them. So it's very rare that I can just detach and everything they're telling me is something new for the first time. And oh, cool. This is a new person with different beliefs, different history, different things that shape them. But then they're not,
Mm.
especially if you're in the same city. It's only when I travel, I go to like I met some Tunisians the other day. And it's so like everything's new, and I know the personality, but I don't know the history. Like I don't know what it's like to grow up in a predominantly Muslim country.
Mm.
I don't know the Thais are similar. I don't know what it's like to be growing up in a Thai culture. And I'm sure when I travel some more, I'll meet other people and I'll be able to expand that knowledge base. But if I was at home in Sydney, most of the time, 90% of the people I meet, I probably already have an idea of who they are.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like how it feels in Perth as well, because everyone's basically 2 degrees of separation, so everyone knows each other as well.
Yeah, like kind of you and me. You and me.
Yeah.
Cordy is our 1 degree of separation.
Now, I have a few questions that I asked to a few of my clients, and they definitely want to know more about your story leading to Commonwealth and how they can kind of take that on board with their life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already answered quite a few of them, and especially what came to inspire you down this particular road as a coach. Now, I guess if we can kind of talk about what you did in Commonwealth and then even to how you restructure it to now, because are you still training Olympic weightlifting?
No.
Will you ever look at a barbell the same?
No. 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 I think I mean, we can segue into that, but I have a very important reason why I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But I guess the question number one is, how do you structure your workouts now and then? And how much strength and how much on technique? Like how much time would you spend on strength and technique? So I guess this is more of a back in the weightlifting days.
Yeah. In the beginning, I would structure my workouts roughly, say, 4 to 5 days a week. So 4 to 5 days a week, each workout would take approximately 2 hours, including accessories. And I would say the first half of the workout I would dedicate towards the skill movements. And then the second half I would always dedicate towards strength.
Hmm.
That's in the first, say, 2 years. First 2 years, your technique is not that great. So you can afford to do more technique sets. And it's not that heavy yet. And then you got to spend time working on your absolute strength. And then towards the middle to late end stage of my career, your loads for both the snatch and clean and jerk ramp up exponentially. So this becomes increasingly tiring, especially after clean and jerks. So then I would spend maybe 33%, if I had to put a number on it, on clean and jerks or snatches. And then I'd spend the rest of that time on accessories.
Mm.
So if you're somebody who's in the immediate stage in the beginning, the thing that holds you back the most is your technique.
Yeah.
So you have to spend time working on your technique. And it's not just practicing on the bar. You have to work on your technique at 70%, 80%, get better at lifting better at heavier weights.
Yeah.
And then once you get pretty good at that, the number one thing that'll hold you back is your mind and your strength. So spend time working on that. To work on your strength is pretty easy. You just put in the volume, put in the strength block, and just go. The science is all there. The mind thing is different though. The mind thing is very psychological. So in order to get under, say, a heavy snatch or a heavy clean and jerk, you need to almost have a do or die attitude towards the later end of your career. The only way I have come across getting better at that is learning how to psychologically trick yourself to not be afraid, or well, to be brave enough while you're afraid, and to practice heavy reps. That's the only two things that are going to help you get better.
Yeah. When I went into weightlifting, it was basically like you can't go into a movement with a percentage of doubt, because that percentage of doubt, especially when you're doing something that's so counterintuitive, you're literally chucking a heavier weight that you think you can catch and getting under it as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me so long to wrap my head around, like 2-3 years before I sunk my first snatch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes when I think about it, technique and strength, they're not so black and white as you think. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to all you audience members that are listening to Sean, he's a very smart man. Yeah. So technique, you need to be strong enough in order to execute the technique well enough. So that's why bar work, generally speaking, doesn't work after a while. 80% versus bar, the muscles, the tightening, the amount of thinking that goes into it is different. So you have to practice at heavier weights. And if you're not strong enough, you won't be able to execute the technique the way that you want to.
It's almost like every single time, if say we're going to take this into an example, do a goblet squat with 5 kilos. You do a goblet squat with 20 kilos. It's not until you get that goblet squat like 50% your body weight, it completely shifts and changes, because that weight and that feedback, it's hard at the top, you're just holding it. It's hard at the bottom when you're trying to press it, completely different. And your technique has to be relative to the actual weight that you're doing it. Because if you were to do, 50 reps on air squats, still hard, don't get me wrong. Not the same as 50% body weight at 20 reps.
Yeah.
Two different things.
They're two different things. You could probably argue that if you did enough body weight squats, you get to that point.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, I tested this for like a week. It was fucked up. It was really fucked up. I had this theory that, on the strength curve,
Yes.
how it's like that, right? So all of our science is kind of in here or like here, but you don't really test the tail end on either side. So I thought, okay, if I train this end and I train this end, then the middle should cover itself. So I did. So like, who knows the 30% RM?
No one. I don't.
No one, right? Because it's too long. It takes too long. So everyone knows that 5 RM. It's like you can test that in about 30 seconds. You can't test the 40% because ethics-wise and also mentally, how do you get someone to do 100 reps of something? So I thought, okay, I'm gonna give it a go. So I did my 5 RM on a deadlift, which was about 160 at that time. So I did 5 reps at 160. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna drop it down to like 40% and just see how many reps I can punch out. So I dropped it down to 70 kilos. And I think I punched out about 50 reps at 70 deadlift. And I was so pumped. Everything was so painful that I couldn't keep going. But I could probably do more. So I think there's like a part to explore for strength people, scientists out there, if you want to put yourself through that. But yeah, that tail end, there's something magical there that you can explore. It's just very, very difficult.
That's that David Goggins type of bullshit. Like you got to really hate yourself to get there through there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been there before. Yeah, I'm not ready to go back there for a while.
It's burning out, and we'll probably talk about that later on as well. But there's always times where you need to kind of push and hustle, or you're just gonna hurt yourself as well. So you need that little middle spot that you were talking about in that curve. Sometimes it's a bit nice to be there. Not too hard, not too easy.
Yeah, it is.
So I guess that would really ties us into our next question. How did you build that mental strength for weightlifting or in anything? Because you were saying that little mindset that you had to work on, what kind of helped you get there and what did you do?
My interpretation of what that was has changed over the years. If you asked me back then, so when I was, say, I would say it really started when I was about 18. I just had an upbringing where discipline was such a key focus. And that really came down to me playing the piano.
Mm.
To all the Asians out there, condolences. But I played the piano for say 10 years, from 5 to 15.
Yeah.
Every day. So in the beginning, I played for 30 minutes a day, right? Which is like 10 years for a kid. And then I ended up playing 1 hour every single day for the last, say, 5 years of my piano learning journey. And there was no enjoyment in that whatsoever for me. And that built this sort of mechanism in my head where I could always just kind of do things that I didn't want to do. And that came to studies as well. I could just sit there, and although I never enjoyed any moment of me doing it, I just had this ingrained ability that I always interpreted me not doing things I liked as doing things worthwhile.
Mm.
And so I just kept doing it. Right? Okay, I don't like this. Okay, must be worth something. I don't like this. Okay, must be worth something. And then it got to the point where when I found weightlifting, I actually liked it. So then I'm spending all this time doing something that I liked. And although there were elements where I didn't like, say, I didn't like turning up to the gym all the time. I didn't like turning up to the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning while it's cold. Sydney weather is cold enough for me, all right? For anybody who is from other places, all right? It's fucking cold for me, so relax. And I didn't like that. I didn't like having injuries. I didn't like hustling all the time for the sport. But I attributed that to something worthwhile in my head. So I just kept going. So that's like how I would interpret it back if I was 25, right? 24. Now I'm 29. And the more I learn about myself, the more I spend time just reflecting and meditating, I can boil it down to one word. I had a very, very low sense of self-worth, and I tied it to my training.
Mm.
The only way I could feel better about myself was if I was training and feeling like I was growing and performing at a high level, because that's what my self-worth was tied to. And negative fuel is rocket fuel.
Yeah.
Like negative fuel gets you going. And we just spoke about how people come from traumatic backgrounds. Dude, if you have a lot of anger in here for some reason and you're unhappy about something, that's a very strong, compelling force for change.
Yeah.
So I can see how that played out into why I was able to keep going. That's one. And the second thing is I gave up a very long-term relationship for it.
Mm.
So like there's nothing more motivating than knowing that you willingly threw something important to you in the flames in order for something else. So anytime I thought about quitting, I always thought, oh, fuck, this happened. I dumped it. So I need to make sure that I am responsible and accountable for my actions leading forward into this journey.
A big one is definitely people move towards fear of as opposed to gain of as well. And it's actually what a lot of people don't think of as much when they make big, compelling decisions. They only think of all the positives, which is great. You should think about positives. Don't be a pessimist. But making sure you also know what you're missing out on, because for everything that you take on, something has to fall off the plate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's where I find a lot of people almost make mistakes in their fitness journey. They want, obviously, to look good as well, but to make sure you make that happen, something else has to fall off. And the identity for that person needs to change too. So they want to be a party person, sorry, but you also need to be wanting to be healthy too, or some sort of sacrifice in between, because not everyone can drink alcohol copious amounts and still be healthy for a long period of time. It catches up.
I would say everyone can't. You know, like it's not, it's, you know, you don't think you're that rare person
Yeah.
that, oh, I can just drink all the time. You know what, bro? You're called a high functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
There's a name for you guys. We know what you are.
You're
And
in
when you come
denial.
off, yeah, yeah. And you can quit anytime you want, right? I can drink whenever I want. And I don't have to come off. I just drink every weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm drunk. Like
Yeah.
it's like, don't lie to yourself. Yeah, everyone knows that like you can't run a marathon when you're drunk. Or maybe you could. If you could, then prove me wrong. But like you get the point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there was a guy who ran a marathon in a bunch of thongs, so he's done pretty well for himself.
Did he do it drunk or just in thongs?
No, just done it in some pluggers and he was fine.
See, that's great endorsement for the pluggers.
Yeah, I wonder what brand you actually did, to be honest. He was one of the big ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, that mental shift, I really have put more time into this because now I'm not sure about yourself, but I tend to train a lot more females than males now because I think they realize at an earlier stage, mentality, emotions, all that is so much more powerful to help you get further and further and further up. For guys, unfortunately, you and I, being guys, I find that challenging to go, hey, look, I need you to read this mental book because it will open up so many more questions for you on how you can work on you. Do you find that difficult as a coach?
A couple of things to that statement. I think the first one is women generally are more receptive to feedback. Also, the online medium is favoring females. I think the online medium is a much easier platform for girls to communicate on.
Yeah.
Texting is great. They're just so good at it, you know. Their thumbs just go fucking nuts. Emoji. So that's one thing. Like the fitness industry has always been driven primarily by females, which is like not a surprise. I'm the same as you. I would say that 60% are guys. Oh, no, girls, sorry. And 40% are men that I work with. In terms of finding guys to... I've got to think about that question. But what comes to my mind is, for me, no. So I have found that my achievements save me from having to explain to people why they need to improve their mindset. I don't need to tell you, especially for men. I feel like men respond a lot better to people who have a shown record.
Yeah.
Like David Goggins, for example, no guy's going to question him.
Yeah.
Right. And Goggins has no, like, academically, he has nothing to his name. But he has something way more important, which is he's conquered that little bitch within him that every guy knows they have. And he's been able to articulate it and attack that in front of the guys.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that guys, it's not that they don't want to improve. It's that they just need a different method of improving and like a different thing to look at. And for guys, I believe it's leading by example. I think maybe with girls, communication and just talking and having the ability to converse and ask good questions is great. With guys, it's more, if a guy is struggling, you as the coach, what can you show them from your experience that they can relate to, that they can use?
Credentials.
It's different.
So you're telling me I need to whip out my bodybuilding competition trophies from when I was 17 and 18, and I'm like, hey guys.
I would say that it's good that they know that you did that, but nothing is more compelling for a guy than a story.
Yeah.
So I have and this falls into communication skills, and it works for both sexes, but dudes don't respond that well to being told. Dudes respond better in relation. So you just tell them a story. Hey, when I tell the people of my Commonwealth Games story and what I went through mentally, the shifts and all the suffering that I went through, I just see their eyes light up. Oh, this guy, like, I can relate to that. I want that for myself. And guys have this weird thing where they almost heroically see themselves within some sort of suffering journey, and they want to come out as like this rebirth person, right? Some guys even wear it like a badge. Look how much I suffer. Go to boxing in my hoodie.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. Like I'm sweating for no reason. Like it's summer. You don't have to put a hoodie on. Just work out. Just warm up for 10 minutes. But I'm gonna have my earphones on and fucking I'm gonna own this persona of suffering and I'm all in myself. But then they feel good about that because there's this archetype in their head where if I'm suffering, I'm a hero. So then you have to give them that. Okay, you show them that you suffered, and then you became a hero at the end, and they go, oh yeah, I could. Oh, that's cool. Like I want to be like that. That's how you. I believe a lot of guys respond better to that.
I can't relate to that, to be honest. So that was a learning experience for me.
I mean, like, ask yourself this question, right?
Yeah.
When you watch a film where the male hero, goes through a lot of suffering, training, or like he's something changes, right? And then at the end, there's a good resolution. He gets stronger, or he gets the money, or he saves his family. Internally speaking, is it satisfying for you?
Hell yeah.
It is, right? And it's like, is it because the script was written well? It's like, no, it's because there's something deep within you that responds to that script. And it's not just that script. It's several scripts. It's every 20 years we write the same story and guys respond the same way. And this has been happening for thousands of years. The story of the hero having suffering, training, rescuing his family, or rescuing his finding a princess, or doing whatever he does. That story has existed for thousands of years, existing all the way back to like the Greeks. You know, it's a story that repeats itself, and it's something that's deep and primal to guys, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Storytelling's, and you do it really well, is how we passed on traditions. It was past how we culturally are from tribe to tribe and wherever we may be. And without the storytelling, we can't pass anything on. And that's where, and people don't find out, I don't know, maybe this is getting a little bit off track, but with the new generation of 7-second videos, stories aren't as compelling anymore. We just want, what is it, straight away. Doesn't quite give us the background of what we need, but that may be how we are now rewired. We want 7 seconds first, and then we try and get more and more afterwards. Don't know how we got into this topic, but amazing.
I think it's very important. The 7-second thing is, first of all, it does terrible things for your brain. I mean, but it is a sign of the time, so it's not like we can really fight it. People are just becoming this way. But the storytelling, that myth that I just described, it's not just one culture, it's cross culture. So you can find it in the Asians, their mythology. You can find it in the Greeks. I'm sure if you went into the indigenous tribes, you can also find similar stories. So there's a collective of similarities where we can say that we resonate with certain stories, and it will continue to resonate. And maybe there's going to be someone who can turn that into a 7-second reel. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
That's a skill in its own. It's an amazing skill.
It's an amazing skill. Yeah, it is an amazing skill. And then one day it might be a 1-second reel. Who knows? But that's really important. And like you said, it's how we pass on things, and it's gonna be how we pass on things for the rest of the time that we exist.
We're gonna kick this back on track.
Okay. You're doing a terrible job, host. Come on, bro. You should be able to keep us on track. I can verbal vomit pretty well, so
I'm loving this. This is a mind enlightening moment for me. Might I say, like, I'm trying to contain myself and not fanboy, because I've been following you for such a long time.
Now I'm just awkward. I'm joking.
So one question. So we were talking about mental strength and weightlifting, and then another person mentioned, how did you motivate yourself and keep the training routine every day? Any tips to be consistent? So you did mention, like, you built up a mental callus, so to speak, through playing piano, and then you kind of use that skill into other things and aspects of life. I guess we already touched base on it, but what were some small little tips that, say, an average Joe like myself could do to get into the gym to be more consistent when it comes to training, nutrition, mobility, mindset, whatever it might be?
I'll give you tips after. I'll tell you what goes in my head. I think that's probably a little bit more interesting. At that time, my inner critic was so strong that it would be physically uncomfortable for me to not turn up. And I would be sitting at home, say I just finished breakfast, I have a double session today. Okay, I have to train for 90 minutes, go home, maybe nap, have some lunch, go back at 4. A double session. And I did this for a whole almost 2 years straight. If I didn't go, like there's voices in your head that go, you can just rest today, la, 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 la. You know, everyone has those voices. But I had an equally, if not stronger voice, I would say, you're a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
Like that's the inner bitch that, oh no, that's my inner bitch killing voice in like the David Goggins one. You're a fucking bitch. Like, what are you good for? Why wouldn't you go? Oh, you give up a relationship. Oh, okay. So now you're gonna sit at home and watch Netflix instead of going to train, you dumbass motherfucker. Like that's how intense that voice was in my head. And I would actually physically be uncomfortable sitting there if I didn't go. So I had that to start with. The second thing I would say is don't think about it too much. You think about it too much, it's always going to drag you back, right? It's always going to, the longer you spend mulling about it, like a cold bath, the longer you spend thinking about it, the less likely you're going to want to do it. So there's like next question. So, well, how do I stop thinking about it? The moment you catch yourself thinking about it, you got to move. Just move. Like it doesn't even have to be go to train. Just move. If you feel like you don't want to do something, go for a walk or get up. Just change where you are. Just change physically where you are. And you'll be surprised at how quickly that's able to shift your mind away from not wanting to do things. Number 3 is look at what you're asking yourself to do. So I would play tricks on myself. So if my session took 2 hours, this is how I visualized it. This is a 2-hour session, okay? That's how long it is. That's a session. Okay, I don't want to do this. It's too long. For me to get from warm-up to my last set of deadlifts, it's going to take me 2 hours. I'm not for it. Okay, let's do this. For warm-up to first set of squats, how do I feel about wanting to do this? Not so bad, but I still don't want to do it. Okay, let's go less. Right. So all I'm doing is I'm reducing my perceived work, and I bargain with myself. I'm not going to go train for 2 hours today. I'm just going to go in, warm up, do my first exercise, which would be snatches, go home. That's what I tell myself. I bargain. But I fully well knew that the moment I got there and warmed up, I would finish off this part, right?
Yeah.
But I needed to just get this first part done. And I was very ready to just stop it there. And I would tell myself, okay, even during my warm-up with the bar, I think, okay, I'm warming up now. Like I said, finish my snatches, and then I'm going to go home. By the time you get to your second and third set of snatches, you don't want to go home. You're going to be there. You're there already. So you might as well just do the next exercise and do the next exercise. And then eventually you've done the whole session and you go home. And it's the more of those you bank, the more of those that you mentally are able to bank in your mind, the more you'll come to realize that half the time your mind's just trying to protect you, right? It's uncomfortable. It's discomfort. If it's uncomfortable, then it's worth something. And your brain, brain-wise, we are wired to want to protect ourselves from discomfort. So if you're a high-achieving person who is trying to lose weight and you're very uncomfortable, guess what? You're on the right track.
Yeah.
And just keep going. Sooner or later, it's going to feel easier and you'll see your results and you'll think, oh, I get it now. It's worth it.
This is going to tie into our next question then, because you've got some guys who want to be a better version of themselves and when you're fitter and stronger. Now we really harped on like that inner self bitch, so to speak. There's no better word to describe it. How do you push yourself without burning yourself out and running yourself down a horrible path? Because I've done that. I've done it inevitably. I basically ran myself so ragged and tired because I didn't do enough research on it. Now, I was interested enough to research about deloads and resting and knowing where too much is too much. But for the average Joe, they're going to be like, oh, if I do 5 sets, that's great. Let's do 10. I would get double the results. I'll cut, 500 calories. If I cut 1,000 calories and 1,000 in deficit, I might get double the results faster. Now, we know physiologically that can only run for so long. How would you help someone with that, trying to be fitter and stronger?
If I had a client approach me with that, I would encourage them to try it for a few days. Yeah, go. You want to cut 1,000 calories? Go. Let's do it properly though. Okay, show me how much you do in a day, and then let's cut that by 1,000. Just a few days. And then after a few days, I would check in and say, how would you like to do that for the rest of your life?
Very interesting.
And then they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do it for the rest of my life. So then I'm a bit sneaky with my questioning process. I always try and seek the problem and ask a question. So I had a guy come up to me a long time ago, 2 or 3 years, and he had just had a heart attack. No, not really, but kind of. He had inflammation around his heart, not in his heart arteries, but around his heart. Anyway, he told me he wanted to do 7 days a week of training on top of a diet that was about 1,600 calories. Right. And he said he was very serious. He wanted to shred, look amazing at 50 years old, all these things. And I sat there listening, and it's not my first rodeo. So I just looked at him and I said, cool. Okay, so what do you want to do in 6 months' time? Is this how you want to do this in 6 months' time? And he just kind of went kind of like that, and he stopped, and he's like, what do you mean? I go, well, we want to create a lifestyle change, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, you want to do this in 6 months' time? And then he just went, is it sustainable? And then I said, well, if you're asking me that question, then it probably isn't. Right. And then, so I'm sneaky in that way where I don't really try and tell people. I just ask them a question to get them thinking. So I managed to reduce him down to 4 days a week, and just making small lifestyle changes. And he made really great results just off that. And I said, it's better that you started off this way, because now you're living the way you want to in the next 6 months and working with what you've got, versus having a 7-day program that is completely unsustainable for you. And 6 months down the track, you have to rejig that. You have to rejig that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a case to be made that if you give someone a really great start for 12 weeks and they can push through everything and they lose 5 kilos, lose 12 kilos, and they make great results, they always have that baseline to push forward. I agree with that. You give them the motivation, they see that it works, there's more buy-in, and then they can stick with that for, say, the next 6-7 years of their life. It's great. Don't get me wrong. Case by case.
Yeah. I would always say for people, and this is where I'm still working on my communication skills, but I always tell people, if you're trying to be fitter and healthier, say if it's weight loss, I tell them, wouldn't you want to do that with the most amount of food, with the most amount of energy, and the least amount of time? And they go, yeah, but I've got more. I was like, don't worry. We can always give you more when your body's prepared for it, when anything happens. And I tell them, if we do a 12-week challenge, I say, look, 12-week challenge, that's the game. But at week 5, if we're no longer playing the game, we're playing your life now. So let's take our time. And they're like, yeah, I do like that. But the language of what you just mentioned, amazing. And that's where some people don't quite realize that your training program should actually make you feel good. Now, what you did at Commonwealth, not sustainable. That's your sprint. That's your game. We're training for life now for most people. If you're listening to this, you're training for life. And life is a long time if you do it properly.
Yeah. Like, hey man, 80 years is a long time, man. That's like the average life expectancy. Like, I think for men it's like 83. And for women it's 88, I think. Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time. And I think most of us, as far as how far we perceive everything. We don't think long term enough. We act very short term. We want the results very short term. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't want short-term sacrifice. No, you don't want short-term sacrifice for longer-term sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be very real with people who are listening about and idolizing the Commonwealth Games thing, right? My body's not the same. Okay, my wrists, my elbows, my shoulders, my knees, my hip, nothing's the same. I bashed my body for close to 7 years with these two movements, lifting heavier and heavier and heavier. Not just that though, I was constantly manipulating my weight. I was losing 7 kilos in a week at some stages. I was losing 3 to 4 kilos in water over a day just to make weight for competition. There are things I've done to my body that I can never get back. And I live with that. So that's a short-term sacrifice for a longer-term sacrifice. And yeah, look, I got some cool experiences out of it, and I'll have something mentally that most people will never achieve in their life. It's like a investment thing, and I can always turn back to it, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah. Everything has a cost, no matter what it might be. And hearing you and seeing you not doing Olympic weightlifting, it probably should give some people some perspective here, because people like you have stories to tell and you can articulate it really well. How people want to listen to those stories, though, that's what they choose to hear, and we can be quite selective of what we want to go with.
I'm sure there's going to be a person listening to this thinking, oh, Phill just gave up. You just gave up, you bitched out. And to you, I say, yes, I did. No, I did. And I'll kind of go to the reason why I stopped. I think we have to learn to let go. And you need to the better you learn to let go of something, the quicker you can evolve and become better at what you want to do. I believe you mentioned that you coach a lot of high-performing girls.
I try.
Okay.
But mostly Gen Pop, but yeah.
Oh, Gen Pop.
They're lovely ladies, don't get me wrong.
Okay. So this one probably applies to ladies. Because I train girls too. You need to let go of the idea that you can potentially do it all. This goes for everyone, not just the girls, but I find the girls that I coach, I needed to remind them of this. You can't do it all. And my ability to let go of weightlifting when I knew that it was holding me back was why I'm able to be where I am right now.
Yeah.
Okay, right now, my cousin, okay, it's not me saying it, although I'm very grateful for it. My cousin told me that I live a very enviable lifestyle.
Yeah.
I work online. I have an amazing bunch of clients. I travel the world. Next week, I'm going to be on an island. The week after, I might be in the Middle East. The week after, I might be in North Africa. The only reason I can get to this stage is because I let go of that Commonwealth Games mindset. If I didn't, maybe last year I would be making a run at Birmingham. Right? I'd be 29 years old, 28, 29, trying to train to make the Birmingham Games. And then if I was still stuck in that mindset, I would then be trying to make my way to Bendigo in Melbourne when I'm 33 years old. Okay, so the sacrifices I was weighing up at that point when I really let the bar go was, how many more years will I hold myself to this identity when I don't believe that it's serving my life anymore?
Yeah.
Right. And then I remember there was a guy that I spoke to. I have huge respect for this guy because he's been in the strength game for 20 something years. Right. And his perspective is, it's the ones who stick with it, the ones who do it for a long time. They're the ones worthy of respect because they win or lose, they keep going and going and going. On one hand, I say respect I really admire that you can keep going. But on the flip, I say, how tied are you to your identity, to this particular part that you're unable to explore different avenues, right? Of your own psyche forget about the fucking lifting. That's a very small thing. It's the psych. So after I quit, like I quit weightlifting, I ran a marathon, did a kickboxing bout, I did Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a bit. When I go back home at some stage, I'd love to fight again. These are different things. But the reason I never touch the bar anymore is because every time I do a snatch, every time I do a clean and jerk, it lights up a fire in me that I've always had, which is that competitive spirit relating to that sport. And I can't have that. If I touch the bar and I start doing, my mind starts thinking, like starts Googling the fucking 67s or 62s. Like, who can I beat? You know, who can I beat? Who's this person? What's his numbers? Oh, only 130. I can beat.
You've trained yourself so well that that pathway associates with touch and compete.
Yeah. And that's why I don't touch it anymore. Like I think it's part of all of us. We need to be able to let go. If you're a high performing manager, and I have a client like this, and let's just say you're closing deals worth $1 million, right? $2 million, $10 million. You're closing these deals, but you want to get healthier, right? But your job requires you to work 50 hours a week. You like this because it gives you money, it has power politically, power-wise, corporate-wise. It's great for your resume, but you need to let part of that go if you want to develop this other side. Yeah, and I know why you don't want to let it go. You don't want to let it go because you're comfortable, right? It's like, I feel good in this position. I might hate it, but I feel like I like to be here. I'm used to being here. And you keep running back. Eventually, you just get to the point where either you break or something traumatic happens, like we talked about, and then you want to go back and you actually want to make that change.
Yeah. That's a deep one. I think that's a good place to leave it at, because it gives people time to think, like, do you want to be proactive or reactive? And once again, takes us back to a full story of, do you want to be in the clinic or in the gym?
Yeah. So yeah, it just depends on how you want to perceive it, man. Like if you wanna let go of something, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely zero wrong with that, actually. And in fact, sometimes it takes more courage and flexibility in your mind to let go of something than it is to stick with it. Yeah, right? Like, I think a lot of Gen Pop, maybe more towards the athletic, like kind of that higher spectrum, is they generally want more. Like, I want to be more of this, more of that, better at this, better at that. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But like you said in the very beginning, to be more of this, you've got to be less of something else.
It was one of the reasons why we actually shut down our brick and mortar clinic and personal training studio, because it was taking up too much time. No time for you or me, should I say, no time for my wife and family.
Yeah.
So that story may relate to a lot of people listening to this. You know, how much more can you give? Kind of the old Batman story. How much more do you have to give? You deserve to give more when you start looking after yourself. And I do train quite a few people who own businesses too, and I always relate with them so much more. And I said, who's saying to look after you now? Like, no one, you are. I'm like, good. So I say, who's going to be more important? You being healthy or your team members being healthy first? Because you're no good to anybody if you burnt out. May you be a parent, may you be a business owner, manager, team leader. You need to look after you first so you can look after everyone else better. And people do feel that sense of like, I'm being selfish. But there's no something wrong with being selfish for yourself. Drawing boundaries and lines is where I find people struggle from, when, especially coming down this university route, I believe, anyway, and you're trying to climb ladders and get status. You want to say yes to everything. I've been wired to say yes to everything because you never know where it's going to lead you. But then it's also about, how can we start to go, knowing where your self-worth is, talking about where we were before with being a health practitioner or even a coach, drawing these lines so you can start going, I know what is my capacity. Because I actually found it quite surprising how many people are willing to work over their capacity for longer periods of time and putting themselves second or third. Crazy, isn't it?
this is something that I thought about for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I honestly feel like this is quite a fresh perspective. So I'm going to claim it for myself. Like I believe this is an original thought. Going back to what you said about selfish, right? People who feel selfish about doing things for themselves. Yeah. Everything you do is selfish. Okay. There's no true altruism.
Mm.
No true altruism. So like you doing something for someone does not mean that you are not being selfish. Because I want people to think about how they feel. Okay. If you do something for someone and you feel good about it, there's a reward for you.
Yeah.
You feel good about it. Okay. But then people then say, yeah, but I don't feel good about it when I do. I don't feel good about it when I do something for someone. I know you don't feel good about it, but that's still selfish. Why? Because the discomfort that you would experience from not doing it for that person is more painful for you than you doing it for that person at that particular moment in time. So you've just chosen which one is less uncomfortable, which is doing something. You chose the lesser. That's still for you. Yeah. Everything you do is selfish. So if you're a business, I mean, I'm in a business. If you're a business owner and you perceive yourself to be selfish because you're looking after this team member, you're looking after that team member, it's because you're attached to the idea that if you're doing something for someone, it's selfish, and if you're doing something for yourself or like setting a no, you're being selfish for yourself. Guess what? In both instances, you're selfish.
I hate to break it for you, but that was actually on an episode of Friends. I'm not sure if you watched that before.
No,
And Joey says to Phoebe, there is no such thing as a truly selfless deed. And Phoebe calls him up and she goes, I let a bee sting myself. That was not uncomfortable for me. I didn't like that. And he goes, well, you probably know the bee died, right?
Yeah. Actually, now I do remember that episode.
Yeah, right? I can retrieve any stupid episode and quote, but that's my giving gift, apparently, that my wife says.
But that's my I remember watching that episode and agreeing with Joey, right? So I would say that I came up with this by myself before Joey, but I mean, if it exists out there already, then some really smart person's probably already articulated it better than I can. So that's really important. And then I believe the second part of what you said was to do with, so one was selfish, and the other one was looking after yourself.
Yeah.
Right. That's really, really important. I think going, I mean, like it depends on how deep you want to go, but leaders and people who simply look after the other people. I think it's Aristotle or it's Tolstoy, one of these smart people, and they say that you recreate the family that you're used to. So do you play the leader, caregiver in your relationship, your family dynamics, right? And it's like, okay, if you are that person at home, if you're that person in the business, there's something to you here that needs to be explored. Why do you feel like you got to take care of everyone?
That's why you get the motherly person all the time, or the fatherly figure in different places and workplaces as well.
Yeah. And the question to them is like, oh, I just care about people, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good for you. Like very altruistic of you. You don't believe that they can look after themselves? You know, that's the question. You don't believe that they can look after themselves? Do you really think this person in front of you that needs your help is so useless that they need your help? Let me challenge you on that and just say, how important do you think you are that this person can't figure it out on their own without you? And I think that's a good question for most people to think about if they're in that position. Why do you feel like you need to help people? The best help is sometimes not helping them at all.
Yeah.
You know?
That's something I realized in your coaching style, even when you said with that person, you know, let's try it for 4 days. You know, you're letting, not saying that you're letting a kid play with a knife, but you're letting them make some mistakes and go,
my parents
how do you think about that now?
I play with scissors, cut myself. Did I cut myself again? No. Okay, so I'll probably, I know you're running short on time, so I'll try and keep this really, really brief. There's a difference between intellectually knowing something as you would know, like university students, you know,
No,
fucking intellectual, fucking great at reading books, mate. And experientially knowing something.
Mm.
Okay. And you have done bodybuilding, so you know this. Experientially to lose weight and be on a prolonged calorie cut has nothing to do with theoretically what you know about it.
Mm.
I can tell you how bad it feels, how much suffering. I can tell you how bad my kidneys hurt when I was cutting weight in the sauna.
Mm.
Yeah, both I thought I had back pain in a sauna. It wasn't back pain. My kidneys were probably just drying up from losing too much water. And that's a feeling that can be described in a book, cannot be experienced in a book.
Mm.
I can tell you what that feels like. I have the mental fortitude to know what that means. And I can go there again if I want to, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same person, I think. But with my clients, okay, I can intellectually tell you what's going to happen. And I experientially know how it's going to feel to me. But until you acquire that experience for yourself, you're not going to believe me.
Mm.
So go get that experience. And it doesn't have to take long, like 4 days. Go experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
That's more important because like on like your phone, on your 7-second reels and all that stuff, you can intellectually tell someone something very easily. You can condense your training method to probably 10 minutes.
Mm.
But to experience it takes years and probably months to years. And that's what they're paying you for. They want you to guide them into experience.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guide you in experience.
Wow. I've learned a lot with today's, and we could probably talk about this for hours.
Yeah, we could. I love this topic. And you like,
shit.
dude, I know you were saying how your communication skills are. Dude, your communication skills are fine. You got me talking so much.
You're such a flattering man. Thank you so much.
I only tell the truth, bro.
Where can people follow you if they want to follow you around the world and see what you're doing in the life of Phill?
I'm actually very bad on social media. You can just follow my name, Philip with 2 L's, .Liao. And I'll put up some travel content here and there. Most of it's just training and competition related, but this traveling trip is really just for me.
Mm.
And you can ask me questions about it. I'm happy to share. But I don't like to spend time like videoing shit and fucking photos. And it's for me, right? In here and there. And like sometimes, you know, you say you're not gonna do it for the social media, but then you start doing it and then you start like the likes come in and my dopamine hit comes. I'm like, oh
yeah, smack it off my hand.
yeah. Oh. So I'm staying away from that.
Well, I hope you put some like really good content with education when you come back from your little trip, because it's always good to recharge your batteries, and even Phill needs it, so everyone else should need it too.
100%. Recharge those batteries.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, just let us know. Leave a 5-star review. That would help me out so much. Just helps the podcast grow as well. And that's all I've got for you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, guys.